Hello fiber friends! Nice that you made it here today. Welcome if you're new to this channel. Welcome to Pages and Pearls, where I talk all about knitting, sometimes a bit of writing and books. My name is Hannah. I am German but live in New York City, and today we're gonna talk all about tiny scarves. So it is the beginning of May, or almost mid-May actually at this point. It is warm here, somewhere around here we are again, 22 degrees Celsius, which I guess is somewhere in the 70s degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not entirely sure. And you might be wondering why talk about scarves now. But we're talking about mini scarves, and there are several reasons. First of all, for me, basically the idea to knit tiny scarves came up because it got very warm here, but whenever you go inside, to the subway, to the library, wherever, the air conditioning is cranked to a point that my poor European throat is apparently not used to. So I just wanted to make something that would protect my throat from the air conditioning while also being lightweight, so I can just throw it in my bag while not being like bulky around the shoulders, so it wouldn't warm me up too much. And that's when I started looking for all sorts of small, tiny scarf patterns. Now I also saw, just scarves. Neckerchief is another term that I found, or just general kerchief. I hope that I pronounced that right. I looked at the pronunciation before, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, there are different names for these, but this whole video is about tiny scarves. And because I was already looking through all of these patterns, I just wanted to make a roundup of my favorite ones. They are all small projects, and the basic version uses up less than 100-gram skein of yarn, more often even much less than that. A lot of the patterns that I selected also are gaugeless, so you can easily adapt them to whatever yarn you have, the quantity that you have in your stash, and you don't really need to have this one specific gauge that you meet and the specific yardage, but you can adapt that easily. And that makes them perfect to use up leftover yarns from bigger projects, or maybe using some special skeins that you bought somewhere that give you a nice memory, or maybe if you want to try some new fiber contents. Like for me, for example, I would love to knit with cashmere one day, but I just know that I find it a bit too pricey to make a big project with it. So maybe something that you wear close to your throat, but that is a small project overall, is a perfect place to start with that. And yeah, lastly, that's also a great project, or these are also a great project as for quick gratification if you just want a little palette cleanser between bigger projects, and they're also great for gift knitting because they go quick, they're small, they're cute, so why not? I believe there's something for everyone in the patterns that I rounded up. So I have some easy garter stitch patterns with just a little bit of added interest, some lace cables and stripes if you want to try new techniques, some free patterns, some paid patterns, and I tried also to find a combination of some known designers and those that were at least new to me. So please let me know in the comments below if any of these piqued your interest, if you've knit any of these before, if you have other recommendations. And as I said before, I wanted to especially look for patterns that use up less than 100 gram, if not less than 50 grams of yarn, because that's usually the skein size that you buy in the shop, and that's also the most likely leftovers that you might have from previous projects. And when I think of tiny scarves, probably you're thinking about that too. The first thing that of course comes to mind is the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit. I don't have this one included in my 10 scarves that I want to tell you about, but I feel like I need to talk about it a bit in the beginning because it's, as far as I know, the most known mini tiny scarf in the knitting world. And if you don't know what the Sophie scarf is, it's this sort of like really elongated triangle, like very thin triangle shape in garter stitch with an I-cord edge. And I believe like the hype was particularly strong maybe around last autumn. For me, it was really when I became more aware of Knitstagram and the knitting social media that I feel like I saw Sophie scarves everywhere, either just like on cute pictures where it was tied around the neck of people, or people rolled it up into like these little croissant-shaped shapes, croissant-shaped bundles, whatever. to take a cute picture of. So I think these were also very popular for like gift knitting around Christmas. So I didn't really understand it at first, the hype, but the more I saw it styled, actually the more it grew on me. I haven't made a Sophie scarf yet, but maybe it'll happen in the future. Regardless if you've made or haven't made a Sophie scarf, maybe you want to try out other mini scarf patterns, so let's get going. The first scarf that I want to talk about is the Knitting Badge neckerchief, which is actually what I'm wearing today. This is a free pattern by a designer called Nicholas Heed. What I should say also, all the links to the patterns are below in the information box. And this pattern is gaugeless and kind of like weightless in the sense of you don't need a specific yardage. You basically just work as many repeats as you have yarn for, and you use the needle or the gauge that seems best for you, maybe the one that is recommended for the yarn. So I will show you the one that I made. I had this yarn left over. It's from Lana Grossa, and the yarn is Ecopuno Tweed as far as I know, and I had 33 grams left over from a project where I made little pulse warmers with a contrast color. And I wanted to make something with this yarn. It's a very interesting fiber blend of mostly cotton, some nylon, some alpaca, and some merino wool, and it's very soft, and I just love this tweedy speckled color of the dark blue with all of these small other colors in it. So I had this at home. I wanted to find something to make with this, and this Knitting Badge neckerchief was perfect for it because it didn't require a specific gauge. It's a very fun pattern to knit. Most of it is in garter stitch, as you can see here, and then you have these yarn over rows in between that create these sort of giant knit stitches in between that add some extra interest to the scarf, in my opinion. And I ended up using, I believe, 32 grams of it, and it gave me, yeah, as you can see, this many pattern repeats, and I'm very happy with it. I finished it yesterday, so I didn't have the opportunity to test it out against the subway air conditioning yet, but it feels very soft and nice around my neck, so I think it will fulfill its purpose properly. So that's number one. Other scarves that I found that I like are scarf number 2 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Now, My Favorite Things Knitwear has 3 scarf patterns, and all 3 actually could be included here, but I just picked the one that I liked the most. This is a sort of triangle-shaped scarf, triangular scarf, which is nicely structured with these little pretty eyelet lace details, and you also have some more decorative sections between these, so it's not just garter stitch as in the scarf that I just showed you. It looks like a really interesting knit, and the pattern calls for a fingering weight. In the example, I think she uses cashmere, so again, could be a nice opportunity to try out some fancier yarns because you'll be wearing them close against your neck, so something soft is very appreciated, of course. The next scarf on the list is the Soul Sister scarf by Sari Nordland. Now, this designer is another one that has several patterns that could be included here, but I picked the Soul Sister scarf because I found it most interesting. It has this very fun dip stitch pattern. It's more of an elongated shape, not triangle, and it looks really cool. In fact, I'm going to be casting this on next with this yarn that I have left over. So the pattern calls for a DK weight, and I think in the original design she holds a fingering and 3 lace weights together to achieve that gauge. But I have this DK weight yarn still in my stash from the same like pulse warmer project that I made, that I used the yarn that I made for this scarf, and it's this one here is the Ecopuno, also by Lana Grossa. This is the label if you want to see it, and it has 72% cotton, 17% merino wool, and 11% alpaca. And I'm gonna make this scarf with it. I still have 33 grams left, which I think is just below the yardage that she recommends in the pattern, but I hope I can make it work. So the pattern comes in 2 different sizes, one that is really more like a full-length scarf, and the other one that wraps around your throat once, that is more the mini scarf. And I'll be making that. Moving on to the next pattern is the Lea scarf by Lynette, so by Lene Holmes Samsø, I think the designer is called, and it's this very nicely textured and interesting contrast scarf. In the sample, I believe she uses 2 different colors for the scarf and then a third one for the I-cord edge around it, and it gives this very nicely structured, textured pattern. And I think this one is perfect probably for using up scrap yarns. If I understood the pattern correctly, it's even nice to use patterns with a slightly different gauge to add to the structured look. So I could picture this with maybe some leftover yarn after I do some color work. Moving on is the Thelma scarf by Gregoria Fibers, which Gregoria Fibers, to me, I've never knit anything by her, but I find her garments particularly always have these really nice eyelet details or just some visual interest that is not plain stockinette, and that also carries over to this accessory. So it is a combination of garter stitch and eyelets, which is similar to some patterns that I already talked about before, but the scarf has a slightly different shape. It's this more very delicate scarf, not triangular, so this sort of elongated shape, and it looks really nice with these asymmetrical ends when it's tied around the neck, like in the project pictures. I believe she holds a lace weight double for this pattern, and again, it's a nice one where you could maybe try out some new fibers or also have a first go at some lace details like eyelets. I've talked about several lace patterns before for scarves, but I also found one very nice looking one that uses cables, and that's the Victoria scarf by Orsa Knits. This cable scarf, I've never knit cables before, but I think a small scarf might be a very good place to try because it's not a huge garment, it's not as tiny as on socks, for example, but just somewhere in between that is like a quicker project and something quicker to like dip your feet into cable knitting. I love the texture it creates, and this accessory in the sample pictures, it just looks really classy and really easy to pair, but has some interest due to the cables. In the pattern, it calls for a DK weight yarn, about 50 grams, so I think it's perfect to maybe use some scraps for it or even to splurge a bit and try an interesting yarn, maybe something like a cashmere silk. Now for all my stripes lovers out there, I haven't forgotten about you. I found 2 really nice patterns that can be included here. First of those is the I Love Stripes by Paula Strict, which is a German designer. It's a really fun triangular bandana style scarf. It has the option of including stripes, and in the sample pictures she also features some with very nice stripes. There are 2 different sizes, one that is more sort of headscarf size and one that ties properly around your neck. And I think the stripes give it a really nice option for using scraps. It's written for fingering weight yarn, and it recommends 2 bolts of knitting for olive silk, pure silk, that you can make 2 scarves with. So if you switch the main and the contrast color between the 2 projects, you will end up with 2 scarves, or you could just go wild with the yarn you have left over, maybe from making some summer tops. I could really imagine this one in a very simple background color, like a white or something, or cream, and then just vary the color of the stripes, like to have somewhat of a rainbow stripe on top of a sort of more neutral background to make it fun but also easy to combine. Then another stripy option is the Polka Grizz Kerchief by Kate Davis Designs. It's a striped elongated triangle scarf that uses a light fingering weight yarn. Again, it recommends 125-gram ball per color, and in the sample she has these nice candy stripes of white and a bright red. But I could also really nicely imagine this. I've been seeing a lot of people knit up stripes in this raspberry red and a nice saturated pink, and for some reason when I look at the scarf I could picture that color combination very well as well. And I think, it's garter stitch, so it also looks like a really nice and sort of meditative process knit, so that might be a nice option too. And now to end, I have 2 fingering weight, more like shawls or bigger scarves that are perfect for those sort of one skein, special skeins of sock yarn, or just fingering weight yarn. Each of these requires about 100 grams, so it's not really for leftovers per se maybe, but they look really nice. So first of all, we have the Lone Skein shawl by Joji Locatelli. This is an asymmetrical shawl with some garter and some slip stitch sections, and it has this really cool shape and texture, and I think it's something that might be really nice to wrap around you, but that is not too hot because of the thin or like the small gauge. And I can imagine that it shows off a special skein of yarn pretty well because you have all the space to showcase maybe some nice speckles or nice variegation. And then last, also for showing off special skeins, the Jubilance Kerchief by Shay Johnson. This is a sort of, I think, a square that you knit out of your fingering weight, but then fold over to form a triangular shape. And it is mostly stockinette. It has some nice eyelet sections and some really fun tassels around to add some extra interest to it. And I have a very special skein that I picked up while traveling a few months ago, and I'm thinking to maybe make this Jubilance Kerchief with it or the Lone Skein shawl. I'm not entirely sure yet. Alright, that was a short but sweet overview of my top 10 mini scarf patterns, or I suppose 11 if you count the Sophie scarf that I talked about in the beginning. If any of these caught your interest, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be curious if you've knit any of these before, as I said. And yeah, if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. For my upcoming videos, I'm probably going to return to more, I'll have a podcast episode sometime soon, maybe some more vlogs. So if you want to be notified about these videos as they come out, consider subscribing. And thank you for watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day when you're watching this, and that maybe, at least if you're in the northern hemisphere, spring or summer slowly making its way to you, that you're getting all the nice sunshine and good vibes, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Bye-bye.